What's up? Welcome in. Oklahoma back in the win column. It's the Sooners on SI podcast. I'm Ryan Chapman, joined as always by the great John Hoover. Boss, how are you? We're dry. That's the important thing.
It rained like a son of a gun out here today, but we were dry in the press box.
We were dry in the press box. Oklahoma knocks off Maine 59-14. We will dive into it. It was kind of a weird Saturday here in Norman. First off, FCS Cupcake Week. It's not the first time Oklahoma's played an FCS school. It's what, the eighth time? Eighth contest ever that an FCS team has rolled out on Owen Field. But it's the first time in November, right? That's the SEC thing. The ACC dabbles in it a bit. And then Friday, we got the news that because of the weather, this thing was going to move up from its original 1:30 kick time all the way up to 11 a.m., which made for a pretty weird game day experience. A shotgun 11 a.m. for a team that was on a 3-game losing streak, that is 4-4, so it already wasn't going to be juiced, and then all that stuff. That was a great decision, by the way. I know the fans that were here may not have saw it, but as we were in the press box hammering away, writing all of our stories, which you can read at OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com, it was dumping rain. Oklahoma State right now is in the middle of a massive delay. Yep. It is what? 6-11 right now, and Georgia and Florida are tied at 2020. Texas Tech's trying to screw stuff up. At OSU, I bet that by the time this podcast comes out, they still won't have finished that game. But none of that matters.
Yeah,
they won't have restarted it.
Come on.
They won't have. But we got this thing done, dusted, and Hoove. Because of the weird start, it was almost fitting that Oklahoma gets the ball first, picks up a quick first down, then has to punt. As the offensive line, no Mike Tarquin today, sprained ankle. Brett Venables said that happened on, I believe, Tuesday in practice.
Yeah,
I believe that he'll be back for the Missouri game. I think this was very precautionary, but it's touch and go. I hesitate to even put that into the ether with how the Oklahoma injury situation has been.
Sure.
So Spencer Brown slots in at right tackle.
Stepped on a paper candy wrapper, sprained his ankle out 3 months.
Yes.
I mean, that's the way this thing has been.
That is Oklahoma football. Punt, and then Maine goes 68 yards down the field. They had a 4th and 1 where Oklahoma wasn't getting the defensive play call in. Kip Lewis is going, "Coach, give it to me," and clapping like that feigns the silent count, basically. So that was a defensive delay of game. Maine converted on a 3rd and 7. They had a big, long run, well blocked. Carter Peavy with some gusto, with some moxie. Maine goes up 7-0, and it got real awkward for about 15 seconds. Kickoff, Javonte Barnes goes 74 yards. Initially said for a touchdown, ended up going out of bounds at the 1 or going down at the 1. 2 plays later, Oklahoma punches it in, 7-7. Oklahoma's driving toward the end of the first quarter. They come out and immediately score to start the second quarter, Hoove, and then they put a bunch of points on the board. And it was blowout city, everything that we expected, everything you wanted outside of the first drive on offense and defense from Oklahoma taking on Maine.
Yeah, the first drive on offense and the first drive on defense, Oklahoma defense, Maine goes down, scores a touchdown. The last drive on Oklahoma's defense, which is, of course, the game's over. The backups are in. Maine had a 17-play, 67-yard drive. Before that, they had a 6-play, 75-yard drive. Again, these were fourth quarter against the backups. But that first one was a doozy, 9 plays, 68 yards, and a touchdown, 7-0 lead. Brent Venables said it was his most frustrating game this year for the defense, to which we all kind of looked around at each other like, really, this one? But he's right. They gave up 14 points. They probably expected to pitch a shutout. They certainly didn't expect to get scripted for 7 points off the top like that when the game started. So. And I bet you anything, I mean, they had several on that last drive against the backups, again, freshmen and stuff like that, but several 3rd down conversions, 4th down conversions. He's just trying to get the guys off the field. They had an interception in the end zone, but a penalty wiped that interception out.
It was a hell of a catch by Reggie Powers.
Yeah, it was great. It was good technique, getting inside the guy, picking it off in the end zone, and Danny Okoye has the hit to the neck, I guess. He hit the quarterback late, illegally, whatever, unnecessarily, whatever, wiped that off the board. Yeah, Brent was not, thrilled. When you ask him about the offense, and he would say, hey, I mean, we showed some growth. We had a 90-yard touchdown. We had a 74-yard run. We big numbers. We had some big plays, explosive plays. What about the defense? Oh, man, I just, he was just dour on the defense today.
Yeah, he talked about, and this is what it stems from. Anytime you have a game like this, if you don't watch the press conference or stuff like that midweek, Brent always comes out and preaches OU's version of respect every opponent under Brent Venables is prepare like it is a nameless, faceless opponent. You should prepare the same way every week. Brent talks about it's healthy to have a little bit of fear that if I'm not on top of everything, they could make me look silly. So that motivates you, stuff like that.
2 hands on the wheel.
2 hands on the wheel, white knuckle, all that stuff. Brent basically said, he said it wasn't the whole unit, but there were definitely guys who said they had no edges to the defense. And basically what he said without saying is the Oklahoma defense walked out and thought they were just going to shut Maine out. Maine had a good script on the first drive. Oklahoma just was like, whatever. They got hit in the mouth a little bit. They adjusted. It was fine. At no point after that was the game ever really close. But Brent Venables was frustrated by that and then frustrated with the close. So I get it. The context of it, too, was 3 straight weeks that the opponent has scored on the first drive. That's a little deceiving because it's like, okay, the opponent came out and scored on the first drive, Ole Miss, a week ago. But that was they're using a lot of 12 personnel, something that Zach had flat out said, they hadn't used that a whole lot. That was new coming out of the bye week. Oklahoma fixed that, adjusted it by the middle of the first quarter and second quarter. They only allowed 10 points to Ole Miss. The third quarter was bad. Yeah, I get that. And then 2 games ago, Oklahoma, did they technically allow a touchdown on the opening possession? Yes, but the offense also handed South Carolina the ball at the 20-yard line, not how you're playing to start a game. But I see what that is there. That's just Brent picking on the defense. He'd be doing that.
The standard is the standard.
The standard is the standard. Well, he needs to retire that until they can see the standard because they can't. But that's a this year issue. Today was good, I thought, for the offense. It was the 8th different offensive line combination, starting combination in 9 games this year. 100% of that is basically due to injury.
Yep.
It was Logan Howland, Heath Ozeta. That was your left side of the Oklahoma line. Then it was Fabechi Wiwu and Spencer Brown. Spencer Brown getting his first start at right tackle, first start for Oklahoma. Like we said, the first drive was kind of meh, a little bit of hits there. But from there, it was exactly what you'd expect from Oklahoma against Maine. Massive gaping holes. Like you and I, we would not have gone for 74 yards, but you and I could have made it through the hole that Javonte Barnes ran through on that big, long run. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Javonte Barnes was able to finish 18 carries, 203 yards. Not only was he the first 100-yard rusher for the Sooners this year, the first 200-yard rusher, 3 touchdowns. He also added 1 reception for 19 yards. So over 200 and what? That's 222 yards of total offense for Javonte Barnes, which is awesome for him as Oklahoma's offense has been awful, right, this year. Everyone knows that. Javonte Barnes has still played his butt off, and he's a guy that we know this all last year, wasn't right with the injury, struggled through it, not really a huge vocal leader. He's been thrust into a vocal role with the young offense this year. And so this is one of those moments where maybe the fans care, maybe they don't. But for a guy that I'm really appreciative that Javonte Barnes comes out to us every single week and answers really tough questions about why his offense has been awful for 7 straight weeks, for him to go out and have a career day like that, he's one of those guys that fans like to root for. It's easy when we're talking to him to be like, yeah, that's a guy I'd like to see succeed. And it was pretty cool for Javonte Barnes today, even if it was just Maine. For
sure, it was something to get going on. Like you're getting out of the starting blocks finally. 9 games into the season, right? That's what it felt like today. Barnes had 158 yards and 2 touchdowns at halftime. So he was going, and the offense, and I think, okay, so the play calling was, I didn't see a lot of like RPOs, right? I didn't see a lot of like, gee, what do we do in this situation? Wonder what the defense is going to do. What should we call? What should we run? Let's wait and see what the defense. It was get up to the line, turn around, hand the ball to Javonte Barnes, he looked like an elite back. He looked like a vintage back, is what I wrote in my game story. He looked like an elite, old school, vintage Oklahoma running back, making people miss, running over people, outrunning people. 158 yards at halftime was pretty good. He had come in, his last few games had been like 60 yards, I think 62, 70, something like that.
Against 2 really good rushing defenses, too.
Well, yeah, his last 4 games have actually been pretty decent.
Yeah.
But then you put him up against Maine today, and he became the feature back. It was impressive.
Yeah, and it was something like, again, like, I don't think John or I are ready to put Javonte Barnes on a Doak Walker award list or this offensive line on a Joe Moore award list because of a performance against Maine.
Yep.
It's Brent Venables, when he talked about the defense, he said, my standard is the same, but I have perspective. With the defense, if it's 11 freshmen, if it's 11 new starters, and they have mental lapses, am I going to work my butt off to get them to the standard? Yes, but I'm not going to be as frustrated. I think that's why he was frustrated that it was a veteran defense today that did that. I think that's why let's take that approach with this offense. Mm-hmm. It's still not a good offense because they put 54 points, whatever it was, on the board against Maine.
Yep.
It's Maine. But the perspective where this group was coming from, in the postgame wrap on the field, we talked about coming out of that Temple game, how they put a 50-burger on the board, but it was, short fields. They didn't look like they were getting pushed, stuff like that. Today was a legit 50 by the offense of, they were physically just running over Maine, and it was a spot where by the second or third drive of the second half, Eddie Pierre-Louis came in at right guard. You saw Isaiah Autry-Dent come in at right tackle. You saw Daniel Akinkumi come in at left guard and take over Heath Ozida. It was a classic game where after that first drive, Oklahoma basically the only other offensive hiccup or snafu they had was a drive where they moved the ball, they ran the option play again, and Sam Franklin just took his eye off the pitch and fumbled it. That was like the only other time they found any kind of adversity, really, which is exactly what should happen when you welcome in an FCS team. And we talked about so much of this week was not going to be about the result. It's going to be about, did they build confidence? And I think that off of this performance, whether it's going to translate to Missouri, we'll see. We'll pick that apart all week. But there was no reason that any of those guys on offense shouldn't have a ton of confidence because they all did exactly what they're supposed to do in a dominant fashion, which is something that no one has done to this point.
If they had played this game, if they had played Maine a month ago, it wouldn't have been 59-14. They would not have gone 11 possessions and only gone two of those possessions without scoring. Here's Oklahoma's drive chart. Punt, touchdown, touchdown, fumble, touchdown, 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 field goal, touchdown. That's impressive. You do that in practice. You do that on air. You do that in 7-on-7. That's pretty good. But they did it against a team with 11 players on defense. Okay, say what you want. FCS, I know. Maine isn't any good. I know. And this is not going to translate big time over to the rest of the SEC schedule. I get that. But that is, as I've said before, as I've told all of you before, that is what we call improvement. And if you're improving, if you're terrible, if you're not very good, if you can't run the ball, if you have no explosive plays, if you can't stay on the field, you can't sustain drives, you're not any good. You're not playing at a high level of football. You start somewhere and you improve a little bit. That's what they did last week at Ole Miss, 14-10 lead at halftime. They did it in the second half against South Carolina. They kind of, they didn't have a great game, but they were better. You take away that first quarter, they were way better in the second half. And then, like I said, last week, Ole Miss, and then this week, you see improvement. What they need to do is build on what they saw today, get a little confidence, get that offensive line maybe with a little bit of attitude, which Eddie Pierre-Louis came in and got a 15-yard penalty today.
Love that.
His teammates were like, hell yeah.
Troy Everett literally fist pump and put his finger there like, yeah.
He said, I was so fired up, I thought I was going to get a 15-yard penalty. So that's what kind of they weren't achieving whatever it is, this edge. They weren't getting into, the whole, what's a good way of saying it? They weren't.
The best Bill Beanbo offensive lines, I think we would all characterize them as
played
nasty.
With an edge.
Nasty, like not dirty, but like those were the guys
block to the whistle.
They were good enough that
Get
they
people
could
on the ground.
They could target Breckenhager in a Big 12 championship game and put together like a highlight tape, right?
Yeah.
And even these offensive lines the last 2 or 3 years, I thought last year's offensive line was an improvement over 2 years ago, but I don't think at any point Walter Rouse good, obviously the NFL, Anton Harrison good, but not Anton Harrison, Tyler Guyton. Sorry, Tyler Guyton was a guy that in the preseason,
not the most physical guy.
Yeah, in the preseason of the NFL stuff, that's where people were like, "Hey, he's playing really, really like aggressive," and that's what he was maybe missing at Oklahoma a little bit. So he had the athleticism, he was technically sound, but like finishing guys through. That's what like Eddie Pierre-Louis brought today.
I think so too.
And that play was the play he got that penalty. I remember turning to you and going, "Hey, Eddie Pierre-Louis was pulling, he was hauling." He did a really great job, and that's why that hole was there for Javonte Barnes. He didn't have enough time to circle upfield and follow him, and he finished a guy into the ground through the whistle, rolled over him, and that's what the flag. I was just like, that's stuff that we just haven't seen.
Right.
Because the first 4 weeks, guys
both sides of it.
Yeah, the first 4 weeks, guys weren't even in the right spot to be able to seal off their guy, recognize that Barnes is on downfield, and try to move on and get going. So I thought that was really positive. I thought Spencer Brown had a good day today. He wasn't tested by any means by this Maine defensive line, but the stuff we saw against Temple, because remember, it was the Temple game that we saw Spencer Brown, and I was going, this guy played at Michigan State. Oh my gosh. I know that Temple's better than Maine, but there were none of those snafus. So I think you can see that this offensive line is trying to get confident, trying to build a little bit more. Houston just scored. Houston's going to beat K-State. Sorry.
I'll further what you're saying. You put the 3 freshmen in late in the game. Not even late in the game. It was mostly throughout the second half they played. They all played pretty well. Xavier Holmes is a guy for Maine that has 5.5 quarterback sacks. If you watch him play, look at his technique going to get the quarterback. He's a really good pass rusher. What did he do today? I don't think he had a sack. I don't think he got near the quarterback. And
Maine had no sacks
against those freshmen. I was watching on the right side. I was watching not Akakumi.
It was the right side was Pierre Louis and Autry Dent.
Yeah. Isaiah Autry Dent. His first play, I was like, this is going to be good because he's got their best guy. He got a lane to the quarterback, and Isaiah just continued to push him out, protect the quarterback. And, 2 times on that drive, Jackson Arnold was able to get out of the pocket, get out of harm's way because of that block on the edge from Isaiah Autry Dent. And even on the touchdown pass that was deflected and caught by Caden Helms, that was Isaiah Autry Dent throwing the block on the edge there to keep Jackson Arnold clean. These are all good things. These are all positive developments for Oklahoma.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that next week Eddie Pierre-Louis is going to start over for Betchy Wee Woo against Missouri or anything like that, right? But that was – you go all the way back to August before we found out just how bad the offense was. But that's something that Brett Middles had talked about, one of my questions, was how do you balance building chemistry on the offensive line while developing these young guys? Because he said they haven't done a good enough job of getting those younger guys ready. Well, now that's the second game for Eddie Pierre-Louis this year. Akinkumi made his season debut. Isaiah Autry Dent made his season debut. So that's 3 true freshmen that are starting that clock of Pierre-Louis can play in 2 of these final 3 games, still maintain his red shirt. The other guys can appear in all 3 of them in whatever role they might need them to. Heath Ozida and Logan Howland on the left side of the line. Good, bad, ugly. Otherwise, this year, those are 2 redshirt freshmen. So you're starting that growth process, and it didn't just look like a total tire fire today. Right. And that's something that Brett Midwell said after the game, that Akinkumi actually came back over to the sideline. He's like, I've been overthinking this, coach. Yeah. This was way easier than I thought. A lot of that has to do with Maine, but that's the kind of stuff you want to see. And it allowed us to see a different side of Jackson Arnold today too, Hoove, because Arnold at every point this year has been under duress, under fire, whether it was the first 4 games when he talked about having that pressure, whether it's been South Carolina, Ole Miss, where he's had less pressure. Today, no quarterback sacks. I think it was just the 1 tackle for loss against Arnold, and that was that first drive where he got back to the line of scrimmage, which, like I said, the first drive was bad. But we got to see Arnold stand in the pocket, not really be too bothered about moving. He did a good job at times when he needed to buy the wide receivers some more time to get open downfield. But for the most part, we got to see Jackson Arnold go through a progression today, as opposed to, like last week, he was first read check down, which was good. It was an improvement. Today, he kind of got to pick through that, and the big, massive chunk play didn't come as a result of that, but because he was able to do that, I think he was a lot more calm when he got into those scramble drills, and then we saw against his own goal line, he rolls out to the right. J.J. Hester's running a little dig, realizes, oh, nope, I got to get going. Jackson Arnold puts a perfect ball out there. J.J. Hester basically kind of runs to the opposite pylon, and it's the 90-yard touchdown, something that has been missing totally from this offense all year long.
Tell me you didn't think he was going to get caught.
I thought he was going to get caught. I absolutely thought it. When Javonte got caught on the 74-yarder, I was like, we're going to have to write about a 74-yard, really good run that wasn't a touchdown, and then like an 85-yard catch or something.
I agree. Brent Reynolds called it long speed.
He showed off his long speed.
Long speed.
Joe John Finley said it felt like it took him 10 seconds to get to the end zone. And I asked JJ about that. He's like, I was bobbing and weaving. So he's like, when you look at the GPS, I'm going to cover a lot more ground than just 90 yards. I was like, fair. It's about the mileage, my guy.
Solid game for Oklahoma all around. You want some numbers? You said Barnes 203 and 3 touchdowns. Hester had 112 and 1 touchdown. That's their first 100-yard receiver. Jackson Arnold, again, 15 of 21 for 224, 2 touchdowns. So they had a 200-yard passer, a 100-yard receiver, and a 200-yard runner. I would say, where's that been? But it's been waiting in an FCS game.
Yeah, it's been waiting. It would, to be fair, if they had played this game week 1, like a Big 12 schedule, this would have been the week 1 game, right? We would have been going, well, they've only had one 100-yard rusher, and it came against the FCS. Right. They've only had one, you know what I mean? But they're waiting for this game. But this is a group that, like we said, kind of tongue-in-cheek a little bit. It's been so bad at times that you go, can you really expect this team? It's a conversation we had on the midweek pod was The average score between Oklahoma and an FCS team has been, 62-4 coming into this game, something in that ballpark.
Yep.
Could we really expect Oklahoma to get to 50, to get to 60? The 34.5-point spread, was that realistic? Oklahoma got to 50 without breaking a sweat.
Almost got to 60.
Yeah, they almost got to 60. They were just kind of running clock. Cover was all of that stuff, which for a team that has struggled, again, it's about building confidence, making things simple, because I think that when Britt Venables talks about that, it's that in the early weeks, he's like, if we're all stepping the wrong direction, if we're all wrong, we're right. Or if we're making mistakes at 100 miles an hour, that you're even if you're doing something wrong, but you're confident in what you're doing, it feels like this offense has been overthinking, which has led to mental errors, which has led to miscommunications, all that stuff. At least last week, they made mistakes going at 100 miles an hour. And then this week, it was a simple, confident, they executed, there weren't miscommunications, stuff like that. And they're going to have to play a lot better against a Missouri team because they're so much better than Maine. I think we all get that. But I think that was the goal this week, was how much confidence can you build so those guys maybe don't overthink it and are able to have fun and execute against Missouri in Columbia next Saturday night.
381 yards rushing on the ground, 7.3 yards per carry. Oklahoma had 665 yards of total offense, the most that this Oklahoma program has had on offense since the 2022 season finale, when they had 672 against Texas Tech.
Overtime game there.
Overtime.
A game that we remember very, very well.
That
was the game that I saw a service dog rush the field. Still one of my cherished memories in life, being like, why is a border collie on the field in Lubbock right now? This can't be good. Whatever. Anyway.
Dylan Gabriel was sent to another dimension.
On the first play of an overtime.
Let's run a
Cheers
reverse
to the
pass to the quarterback.
Speaking of which, do we have an update on UMass? Never mind. J.J. Hester caught 4 passes. Jacob Jordan 3 passes. Thompson and Franklin Sharp all had 2 each. Xavier Robinson, who came in and looked good toward the end of the game, local product, big-ass stiff arm. Javante Barnes, Caden Helms with the touchdown catch. Zion Curdy, Ivan Carrion all got catches. It was just good to empty the bench. That's what it's supposed to look like in a game like this. And the same thing on the defensive side of the ball, too.
I'll say it again. I know it was Maine. I know it was an FCS school, but Xavier Robinson looks like the truth when he's running with the football, doesn't he? He had a catch out there, too, I think.
Yeah.
Or he's running down the sideline. The defensive back comes over. It might have been a linebacker. I think it was safety. Comes over and hits him and doesn't even redirect him. It just hits him on the sideline like whoosh, and drops. And he just keeps going.
He's tippy-toeing. He's tiptoeing on the sideline.
He's a tank, man.
And shoves somebody off. It was fun there. And so it was some cool bits there. Caden Helms, much like Javante Barnes, who was banged up last year. Caden Helms has been banged up for a large part of the last 2 years. So cool to see him go out there, get a touchdown catch. I know the team was super stoked for him. And gold stars all around for the offense. No one's going to nothing's fixed, all that stuff. It's what you're supposed to do against Maine. You flip it over defensively.
For in my game report, I do a stock up and a stock down. One player got a stock down, and it was a defensive player, and it was a true freshman. So it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. I hope he doesn't take it personally, but he's the only player that I gave stock down to.
Was it Danny Okoye for wiping away the pick? Yeah.
Danny Okoye for taking a shove, a little shove, and he does the whole European soccer flop, right?
Yes.
And I was looking right at it, and I'm like, what did he just do? And then the next play, he hits the quarterback in the throat, karate chops the quarterback in the throat, and takes away the interceptions. Like, Danny Okoye, you can't do both of those plays back to back.
Back to back. Poor Reggie Powers. The Ole Miss PA guy tried to credit Reggie Powers with a punch out last week because J.J. Hester, because they can't figure out double numbers in Mississippi apparently. Reggie Powers, great interception. No, we will remember it. The stat book won't, but we will remember it. Oklahoma started Jacoby Johnson, Eli Bowen at corner today, so I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's a move.
Otherwise the rotations are pretty similar. You saw no Ethan Downs. Brent Venables said that Ethan Downs was dealing with back spasms and it hadn't kind of settled in on Friday. That makes sense. We had talked about it last week that Ethan Downs was going through it but still setting the edge, and you could tell that every time he was hitting the ground, he was in pain. Who knows with all that stuff, but I wonder how different the equation would have been if they were playing Missouri today, if it would have been more up to Ethan to give it a go, stuff like that. I wonder if Tarquin's kind of in the same boat. But otherwise, you got to see a lot. You got to see David Stone was working in the second quarter today.
Which looked really good.
he looked really good, which is really impressive because I wrote about it this week, OklahomaSooners.com. Jaden Jackson and David Stone kind of basically saying, hey, guys, I don't think you care about Maine, so let's look at the future, what that's going to look like. And Stone has the big honking cast on his right wrist that he has wrapped up. And the first snap that he was in the game, he basically didn't use his right arm at all and just went whoop, dove to the, or exploded to the right, and then cut back to the left. And the Maine left guard was spinning like a top, like, they can move like that.
Yeah.
And then I think he redirected the running back and wasn't involved in the play, but he beat his guy without even like touching it. There wasn't any striking necessary. I was like, man, imagine when he gets 2 hands back.
That might actually be the second biggest cast I've ever seen on a hand, wrist, thumb. You want to know what the first one was?
What's that? Yours?
Yes, mine.
Yours?
In high school, they called me Mega Thumb. I wore this gigantic wrap, huge. It looked like a club. On my thumb, if you're on the video right now, you see. Here we are 40 years later, and it's still giving me problems.
Yeah.
The doctor that fixed it, I said, dude, when I first saw it, I thought you were going to have to amputate. And his response was, in about 40 years, you're going to wish I had. That's how bad my thumb was dislocated. Again, we're still dealing with it 40 years later. They called me Mega Thumb.
Yeah.
And so when I saw him out there playing, I had a little tear in my eye.
You were like, hey.
Throwing it back to Mega Thumb.
I've been there. Hey, Stone also got his first career sack, so big for him. You look at it, Brent Venables ran through it. The first drive, he was very upset with the intensity, the zone defense, some of the pockets of the zone. I thought that they got that fixed pretty much immediately. Maine got another first down in the second drive, and then it was pretty rough sledding for the rest of the first half. PV on their other touchdown drive, I mean, just a hell of a throw over the top, in between 2 safeties, 2 young safeties out there. So while you don't want to see those big-time pass plays against Maine, credit to PV just because he plays at Maine. That was a beautiful – it was like the perfect throw for that situation.
He was a Marshall transfer?
Mercer.
Transfer.
Yeah, he was a Mercer Bear. They actually watched him in the prep for Auburn last week.
Okay.
I know that was lost somewhere in the hour and 6-minute press conference on Tuesday, but that was something there. So, other than that, it was cool to see some of those young guys get out there.
Yep.
Michael Boganowski is one of my favorite players to watch. His first snap in the second half, it was the second drive of the third quarter. He's lined up at safety. There's a play action fake in the backfield. So he's triggering, coming down to cover his spot of the zone, basically. First thing he has to do is put his hand up and let the referee know, like, I'm passing him on the right. So it wasn't like a shove. It was like the, hey, I'm coming over here. And then there is a massive collision. Michael Boganowski collided with Kobe McKenzie. He ran right into the back of Kobe. It was so funny because the play was gobbled up behind the line of scrimmage. So Kobe McKenzie had enough time mid-play to – he was bewildered. He was like, who just like trucked me from behind? And he like looked over his shoulder after the play and he's like, oh, it's Boganowski.
Yeah, that's an illegal block in the back. Oh, that's never mind.
The motor he has, he is obviously a missile. Freshman, eager. He's going to figure it out. He's going to be so much fun to watch. Jaden Hardy was getting after it. It was just hilarious.
Boganowski's a serial killer. He's going to test the societal limits, trying to kill somebody out there and see what he can get away with.
He's going to break somebody.
It's amazing, though. I love watching a kid play. He's so intense.
It's all good with Boganowski. Hoover was a little annoyed, I think, because at times he knows when I see something like that, because it's not like did you see this? But I'm just chuckling beside him while he's trying to write, and I just started cracking up. I was like, did you just see what Boganowski did?
Big stuff down the stretch from Devon Sears.
Yes,
backup defensive tackle, senior. He comes in and has 3 total tackles, but 2 of them were for loss, including a big quarterback sack, and crunched a running back in the backfield. He looks like he's ready for maybe more action.
Yeah,
nice job by him.
He was shoving people to the side. Him and Ashton Sanders were kind of running on the interior together there. Got to see some Taylor Wine toward the end of the game too, which was good to see. I really like. He just looks great in space. So excited to see what that looks like.
Jeremiah Newcomb with a really good pass breakup down on the goal line.
Yeah, he had that. You also had a couple of really good Eli Bowen plays in there. I thought that Hardy played fast and aggressive and played really well. Every time the freshmen come in on defense, I get really excited to watch them, which is a good thing. It's not like the years past where you're going, throw the freshman out there. It's not like the conversation we're having on the offensive line right now. Right. It's very much like I'm excited to see what Michael Boganowski brings. And other than that, credit again to Robert Spears-Jennings. He broke the seal on the turnovers yet again with another great punch. That's his 4th forced fumble, 1, 2, 3, 4 forced fumbles this year. obviously big time for him.
Leads the SEC.
Yeah, Reggie Powers would have had the interception, so it would have been a 2-turnover day for Oklahoma had it not been for Okoye. We already talked about that. But listen, we're not going to insult the intelligence of you guys. You know it. We know it. It's Maine. It doesn't mean everything's fixed, but
as Brent would say, nobody's pounding their chest.
Yeah, nobody's pounding their chest, but everything you wanted top, whether it be, you mentioned the yardage. I thought the third down numbers were really, really important for Oklahoma as they've struggled. They were 10 for 14 on third down, 2 for 2 on fourth down. Didn't need a whole lot of that. You mentioned it, 10 drives, 8 scores, the punt, and then the fumble. It's everything that you wanted out of this game. And the most important thing is, yes, they're not 100% healthy, but no one left this game with a mega injury that is going to – there was nothing aggravated in this game. Coming out of it, again, Michael Tarquin, ankle sprain, Ethan Downs, back spasms. And we did get an update on Deion Burks and Jalil Farouk, which is those guys are out there running around, Brent Venables said. I think Brent Venables has been scorned one too many times by saying someone's day-to-day, then they get banged up again in practice. He's like, again, I'm not trying to be evasive. I think he's not trying to promise that they're going to be back, but I know that Jalil Farouk has been targeting this Missouri game because that would be he could play Missouri, Alabama, LSU, and still maintain his red shirt. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. And Deion Burks is still out there working around after he had his setback in the lead up to the South Carolina game. Is that it? Or Ole Miss? Either way.
It was here at home.
South Carolina. Yeah. So after the lead up to the South Carolina game, because last week we weren't expecting to play.
Right.
So we'll see if that changes going into Missouri. We're back on availability report duty this week. It is an SEC game stepping back in, so it'll be weird. Availability reports this week, then not the week after that because it's a bye week, so nothing there. But everything is on to Missouri. Hoover, you have any big thoughts? Because when we get back on Thursday, or next time you hear us on the podcast, here's on the side pod, we'll try to parse through how much of this can you actually roll forward, how much can you not. It's Missouri, a totally different level of team, all that stuff. But any other kind of big takeaways from today's contest?
Well, I haven't gotten into the schedule matrix and seen picked up on a pattern exactly. But if you look at Ole Miss when they played Oklahoma, they were coming off a bye week. You look at Missouri when they're going to play Oklahoma, they're coming off a bye week. You start to come up with conspiracy theories and all that stuff, right? Alabama, the last is senior day, right?
South Carolina coming off a bye week too.
Were they? That's what I don't know. I haven't done all the.
Texas was coming off a bye because they both were on the bye. I'm pretty sure that South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Missouri will all have been coming off a bye.
Sankey hates OU. Let's talk to him about that.
Now, Oklahoma's also coming off a bye because they played Maine.
Well, here's my point with saying that. I'm bringing this in because Missouri, the last time they played, they got beat 34-0 by Alabama. So they're coming off a 34-0 loss. And then they have a bye week, and they're going to try and get some things done and try to make some improvements, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Oklahoma got out here and got a game where they kicked the crap out of somebody. Now you're talking about a team that's last performance, they got their teeth kicked in. Another team, they're coming off their last performance where it was their best game of the year. So maybe that plays in Oklahoma's favor.
Yeah, and I think part of it, too, is that this offense, because of the injuries, is now a lot younger than I think everyone expected it was going to be coming into the year, talking about the left side of the line, all the receivers, all that stuff.
Right.
For a young team, being able to go from a really promising first half against Ole Miss where it kind of fell apart in the third quarter to go out today and you absolutely dominated somebody. It was a simple game plan, and they executed all that stuff. No one did anything today that I think the coaches – will there be corrections in film? Yes, always on Sunday. But no, I don't think anyone's just getting a total chew out on Sunday, and you're going to be able to say, all right, everyone can relax a little bit more. All that anxiety that things aren't translating from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to Saturday, all that stuff. Look, it did translate. That's how you do it. Slow the game down, all that stuff. We'll have to see. It'll be incremental. Brent Venables did point out, though, that you saw it today is what he said, that when it's explosive, things get a lot easier. So getting back at Deion Burks and Jalil Farouk would be – it's hard to even overstate how incredible that would be for Oklahoma because –
then you're talking about chemistry.
You're talking about Javonte Barnes
and all that stuff.
Continuing off of this nice little run that he's had, and then suddenly, oh my gosh, you got guys that whether Jalil Farouk and Deion Burks are 100% or not, they're going to be in the right spot. They know the off – all that stuff that has just kind of been question marks and inconsistencies with young players. So we'll see as the week progresses. Everything – We talked to a ton of players today, as well as Zach Alley,
Check out all
Joe
the
John
videos.
Finley.
Wow.
OklahomaSoonersOnSide.com. You can find all those videos there. You can find my story about Javonte Barnes, Bryce story about Caden Helms. Sunday morning, there's going to be a ton of content. Obviously, you know the drill. There's going to be some women's basketball up there on Sunday. Monday is going to be an absolute disaster from our point of view because we've got softball, men's basketball, women's basketball, and that softball interviews, men's and women's basketball games, football interviews. It will be busy. OklahomaSoonersOnSide.com for all of that content. And if you just want to watch the videos or if you're looking to find the videos and you're a YouTuber, John Hoover Media, that's the channel. Just hit it, subscribe, all that stuff, and they will all be there. But that'll do it here from Norman. 59-14, Maine falls to the Sooners, the Black Bears, in their first ever meeting in Norman.
I just want to put a period on this. The dude who wrecked my thumb, you old school guys might remember this name, Terry Pritchard.
Oh,
Moore Lion. We were scrimmaging Moore right down the road here, and I was engaged in a block, and our 290-pound D tackle came and smashed him in the back. The Kobe McKenzie story reminded me of that.
Yeah.
Smashed him in the back, and about 600 pounds of force into my thumb, so wiped it out. Anyway, Terry Pritchard, former Sooner, is the reason why I wear this stupid black brace now.
And Houston just knocked off K-State.
How about that? Wow.
That'll be huge.
College football's drunk.
That'll
man.
be huge for Oklahoma's strength of schedule as we look toward the first college football playoff ranking release this Thursday. We'll see if the Sooners sneak in. That Houston win puts.
Terry Pritchard, if
Sorry.
you're watching, I don't blame you.
It's not Terry's fault. I would like to apologize for my outburst. I know that wasn't professional enough here for all the choir boys on the YouTube. Sooners on Side podcast. We'll be back next Thursday, wrapping up everything that Brent Venables said on Tuesday, everything the players had to say Monday night. We'll be previewing Missouri. I'm sure that we'll be linking up with someone who covers Missouri. We should just call Eli.
It's a great idea.
We're just going to call Eli Letterman, see if he'll do it. ESPN's Eli Letterman doesn't cover Missouri, but a Mizzou grad. Maybe he can give us the Shakespeare's Rex and all that fun stuff. We will be boots on the ground in Columbia. So per usual, be sure you're following us at Sooners on SI on Twitter, at Johnny Hoover. I'm at _Ryan Chapman. If you want all the game day coverage from the press box, from boots on the ground, from ground zero, all that stuff, we'll be in Columbia next week. But for the podcast, the next time we'll talk to you guys is Thursday. Take it easy. We'll talk to you then.
Let's get granular.
Cool.
Oh.
We like